Hi everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview.
We are joined by legendary director Joe Dante.
Mr. Dante is known of great movies like The Howling, Innerspace,
The Burbs, Explorers.
Small Soldiers.
I don't think you guys have seen The Howling. At least I hope not.
We aren't allowed to see rated R movies yet, unless you can convince our parents.
No. I think you can wait about 10 years for that.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
We really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
It's been almost 40 years since the first Gremlins movie, and now Gremlins are back.
On the Max streaming show, Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai.
How does it feel to have a new generation introduced to the Gremlins?
Well, it's very exciting. When we made this movie so long ago, we had no idea it would still be popular 40 years later. Make a movie and you try to make the best movie you can and make yourself happy, and then you figure it'll play for a little while, and then other movies will come along and people will forget about it. But in this case, for whatever reason, it has continued its appeal over the years, and different generations like it, and kids grow up and they show it to their kids, and so it's become what they call in the business a classic.
That's amazing.
What was your involvement in the new series?
IMDb lists you as the director, but I saw somewhere that you said you weren't.
Well, IMDb is not the last word. There are many mistakes on IMDb. Bless them, they try hard, but they don't. In this case, I'm not the director. In fact, I found out that the show was being made by reading it in the paper, and it sounded to me like a pretty good idea. And I called the company up and said, if there's anything I can do to help you guys, let me know. And they were very enthusiastic, and they brought me in, and I met all the creative people and saw the way the show was going, and became, to my surprise, a producer, a consulting producer, which means that they have a question, they ask me.
We have more Gremlins questions for you in a bit.
But first, how old were you when you first knew movies were a passion and something you wanted to be involved in?
Well, I didn't really realize it for quite a while. I was a kiddie matinee kid. When I was a kid, they used to have a thing on Saturdays. It was called the matinee. And it was a way to get kids interested in going to the movies, and they would run 10 cartoons and 2 movies at a time. And I became addicted to that, and I just had to go to the movies all the time. And my real goal was to be a cartoonist. But ultimately, I ended up making movies, which was a surprise to me, but is probably the only thing I can do well.
Rana was your first horror film, and then you did The Howling, which is considered a classic.
What is it about the horror genre that you love?
Well, I think it's the same reason people told stories around campfires. I mean, we always like to know what's going on out there in the dark, and the idea of things being scary, or you can have to consult yourself and see, can you take it? And it's one of the reasons why people go to amusement parks and go on roller coasters, is to be safely scared. We all like to confront our scares.
What are some horror movies that many people haven't heard of, but you would recommend them seeing?
Well, for your age group, I would think that you could start with the Walt Disney classics like Pinocchio. It has a lot of scary stuff in it. And it has people turning into donkeys, which is sort of kind of inspiration for The Howling, which is people turning into wolves. And all the fairy tales are all basically scary. And it's I think kids like scary stuff. I grew up on from the 1930s, black and white, Stein and Dracula and Wolfman. That were pretty scary in their day, but they were comforting to us because we loved those monsters.
I see every movie I can possibly see in the theater, But except for the blockbuster type movies, the theater is pretty empty most of the time.
Because so many people have gotten used to streaming.
Do you think horror movies are in a better position to do well in person because you need the dark theater for the full effect?
I think horror movies and comedies play much better with an audience. You always, the audience draws from each other, and if something is scary, then people are scared en masse. A whole lot of scary stuff, and if people are laughing, then other people will laugh. You can see the same comedy movie on TV, and it will be funny, but it won't nearly be as funny as if you saw it with a big audience that was laughing all the way through.
We actually discovered quite a few child actors who became really big.
Are there any that you just knew would become a big star or are really proud of?
Well, I'm proud of all of them, but I don't know. I didn't know that any of them were going to become big stars. That's always a surprise. I like working with child actors because they're very they work from the heart, and they don't have any preconceived ideas of how to play the part. They just come in and play it, and you get a lot of honesty. Child actors. I've been really lucky in being able to choose the right actors for the right parts, and so here's a lot of the child actors that I become movie stars.
I'm going to a horror movie tonight, a PG-13 horror film, The Boogeyman.
In June of 1984, a horror film came out, Gremlins, that clearly did not deserve an R rating, so it got a PG rating.
Which doesn't seem right either.
Then, the very next month, the PG-13 came into existence.
Are you and Gremlins the reason we have PG-13?
We're part of the reason. There were two Steven Spielberg productions that year. One was Gremlins, the other was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And in that movie, somebody's heart got ripped out. And in Gremlins, they're of course putting Gremlins in blenders and microwaves and stuff. And a lot of parents thought that this was a little too much for a PG. And so they came up with the space between the R and the PG, and they came up with PG-13. What's interesting is that neither of those movies have ever been re-rated PG-13. They're still actually officially PG movies.
For people who don't know, Steven Spielberg was the executive producer of Gremlins.
In your work with him, in what way do you feel either of you impact the other's work over the years?
Well, I think Steven created the company Amblin, which was made Gremlins as its first movie, because there were a lot of interesting movies he wanted to make, but he didn't want to have to take the time to direct them because that's very time consuming. And then, of course, if he produces them, then he can hire other people to direct. In this case, E.T. had come out a couple of years, and there's a charming and lovable character in Gremlins, which is Gizmo. And because of Gizmo, I think Steven really sort of took a shine to the project. And in fact, during production, he decided that Gizmo shouldn't turn into the bad gremlin. He should stick around for the whole movie and be the hero's pal and carry him around in a backpack. And I've always believed that that's one of the keys to why the picture is still popular today. It's because everybody loves Gizmo.
We love Gizmo.
So cute.
And you must like Baby Yoda too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever see any resemblance?
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
Me too.
We mentioned that in our review.
Yes, you did. I read your review.
Grogu's basically Gizmo.
OMG.
If you were making a Gremlins movie now, I'm guessing you'd still use puppets. But would you use CGI at all?
Well, sure. I think the puppets are great, and they're particularly good because the actors are on set with them and they can relate to them. It's not like something you put in later in the film. Stare at the wall and we'll put it in later. But the great thing about CGI is that because Gremlins puppets were puppeteered by real people who were underneath the set and behind furniture and behind the walls, we had to make a lot of shots that were not flexibility. So today, I think you do the puppets, but you'd have the puppeteer right next to the puppet. And then you do another pass with CGI and you take the puppeteer out. So you have a lot of really good puppetry. You have to see any of the puppet people.
How did you make the Gremlins cocoons for the movie?
We made them out of rubber, as many things are made in Hollywood, and particularly out of Gremlins movies. And they were uh, inflated with air, and most important ingredient, goop, lots of goop, lots of runny, shiny, sticky goop.
The first Gremlins movie being so iconic, did you feel more pressure when making the second one?
No, in fact, I didn't want to make the second one because the first one was so hard to make. And it became a big hit. And then they said, well, let's make another one right away. And I said, I went away for a while and did other things. And they tried to make a movie, but they didn't really understand Gremlins to begin with. And so they finally came back about 5 years. Okay, well, if you make another Gremlins movie for us, we'll let you do it. And so I decided to sort of make it more of a comedy and make fun of the rules, make fun of the whole idea of Gremlins. Even more difficult to make Gremlins 3.
Second Gremlins movie, Billy's drawings. Whose job was that to make those drawings?
I don't think that the actor made his own drawings. I think we had an art department to do that. It was originally in the first movie a big plot point that Billy wanted to be a cartoonist. But in fact, that sort of got pushed away in the editing. And
The reviews have been really strong for Sequence of the Mogwai.
We're fans.
Do you think this will get people thinking about another Gremlins sequel?
There's always talk about another Gremlins movie. And this new animated series is sort of the answer to that talk. I think it's a very clever way of making another Gremlins movie by going back to the past and starting over. Is there going to be another Gremlins 3? I mean, hopefully this show will be popular and people will like Gremlins again. But they've never not liked Gremlins. They've always liked Gremlins over. And I can't speak for. I don't own Gremlins, but just on the sidelines kibitzing. And I'm sure that sooner or later somebody will make another Gremlins.
What advice would you have for kids who want to make movies?
Well, I used to get asked that question all the time, and the answer now is much different because now you can actually make your own movies. You make movies on your phone. And my advice would be to go ahead and do it. Get your friends together, write up a little something, and do a little playlet or a little short, and test out, how it feels to work the material. I think it's a real opportunity now kids have that never ever in my years that you actually have the technology to be able to make. Used to have to make it an 8mm, and you have to edit it, and then you have to try to find a way to put sound on it, and it was really a complicated process and expensive. But now I think there's no excuse for not making a movie if you want to make one.
Is there any project you would have in the works that you can tell us about?
I had a lot of projects in the works, but now there's a writer's strike. So we don't know which ones of those projects are ever going to see the light of day, or in fact, whether the people that we gave them to are even going to have their jobs when it's all over. So it's all a very topsy-turvy moment.
Finally, we'd like to ask you our Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions. Can you do that?
I guess I'll have to here.
1. What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Bugs Bunny.
2. What is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Comic fishing.
3. What was your go-to snack food?
Popcorn.
4. Who is one actor you never worked with but would want to?
Oh gosh, there's so many actors who passed away before I started making movies. I would have loved to make a movie with gosh, so many people. Edward G. Robinson, I guess.
5. What was your favorite movie quote?
I'm still big. It's the pictures that got small.
6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Um, well, flying would be nice. Flying would be good.
What 7? What scared you as a kid?
The dark.
What 8? What is your favorite rainy day activity?
Scrabble.
9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Eat dinner guests from people who are still with us.
No rules.
No rules. I guess Santa Claus, Jesus Christ, and Abraham.
10. What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Sit down a lot. I was told by my first employer, Roger Corman, that it's hard to make movies, so make sure you sit down a lot. Problem was he was so cheap we didn't have any chairs.
You did great. Thank you so much for doing that.
And Mr. Dante, thank you for spending this time with us.
We appreciate it so much.
And we appreciate your work as well.
Well, thank you very much. Great to see you.